In the stock market, Jamaica and Barbados are down and Trinidad is up. Dr. Leroy Almendarez talks about the effects of MSMEs. Roberto Pott discusses sailing in Belize, and a Belizean entrepreneur discusses her experience as an innovator in small business. I'm Destiny Wagner, and this is Legacy Markets. Good night and welcome to Legacy Markets. I'm Destiny Wagner, your host for the newest source for intelligent and unbiased coverage of money, business, and the economy, both at home and in the Caribbean region. Here to give you the weekly business headlines and the latest news on the Caribbean stock market is analyst and co-host Rafia Flowers, who is standing in for Abigail Castellanos.
The Jamaica Stock Exchange experienced a 1% decline from the previous trading week. The top winners were Jamaica Public Service Company Ltd, up by 17%, and Salada Foods, up by 5%. The losers were Eppley Ltd, down by 14%, and Mayberry Group, down by 13%. In their headlines, Jamaican companies are unaware of the likelihood of cyber attacks. About 1 in 2 Jamaican companies say they would not know what to do if a cyber attack happened, according to a survey of more than 100 companies last year. The survey conducted by the IDB in collaboration with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica in June of 2023 revealed that about 30% of the firms had not employed any cybersecurity professionals, internal or external, while 28% said they only intended to hire a cybersecurity professional in that year. As for the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, it had a modest increase of 63 basis points from the previous trading week. The top 2 winners were Trinidad Cement Ltd, up by 4%, and JMMB Group, up by 3%. The top 2 losers were Unilever Caribbean Ltd, down by 2%, and First Citizens Group Financial Holdings Company Ltd, down by 47 basis points. In the headlines, NIF in Trinidad announces a $400 million bond offering. On 22nd January 2024, the National Investment Fund Holding Company Ltd announced a $400 million Trinidad and Tobago bond offering at a rate of 4.5%. The bond will be backed by shares of Republic Financial Holdings Ltd and will be offered for sale to individuals, small businesses, credit unions, and pension plans. In the Barbados headlines, the Central Bank of Barbados is investigating a plan by the Bank of Nova Scotia which would make it more costly for residents to do business through their interbank transfers. Scotiabank announced that effective February 1st, it will be introducing a fee of $1.25 on the transactions of customers who use its online banking services. In their stocks, the Barbados Stock Exchange had a slight decrease of 16 basis points from the previous trading week. Winner, One Security Advance, which was Emmer Deposit, up by 28%. Losers, Goddard Enterprises Limited, down by 3 basis points, and Cave Shepherd and Company Limited, down by 11%. Now to bring it back at home, if you are interested in traveling across the globe, the Belize to Euro exchange rate for this week, the Euro depreciated against the Belize Dollar by 56 basis points. Now shifting our focus from European rates, let's turn our attention to the foreign exchange scene in Latin America, particularly honing in on the cross-border dynamics near Belize. As for the Guatemalan currency, the Quetzal depreciated by 3 basis points against the Belize Dollar. And as for the Mexican peso, this week, it depreciated against the Belize Dollar by 1.44%. And that is it for our business headlines. We have a brief commercial, but when we return, Destiny will be joined by our guest, Dr. Leroy Almendarez.
Legacy Fund will change Belize from small-scale municipal improvement projects to national infrastructural advancement. Unsightly playgrounds, derelict buildings, unsafe bridges, poor housing choices will become a thing of the past. How will this happen, you ask? Well, With the right partners, of course, but not the ones you're thinking of. Legacy is not looking at traditional financial institutions. We will build this transformation with you, the everyday hard-working Belizean citizen, the hairdresser, the tour guide, the fruit vendor at the market. Using the market and innovative financial tools, Legacy brings you and Belize the financial solution to grow your wealth for you and your community. Contact us and find out how you can be a part of this exciting new Belize that we build. Call 822-1794 or email clientservices@legacyfundlimited.com. People, capital, innovation. Legacy Fund Limited.
Joining us on Legacy Markets. Tonight, we want to explore an area in our economy that has grown significantly since 2019 and may be a large contributing factor to our economy. According to the UNDP, micro, small, and medium enterprises account for approximately 90% of businesses and 50% of total employment. In the Latin American and the Caribbean region, MSMEs have consistently been strong economic drivers, and they account for 99% of businesses in the region and more than 60% of regional employment. And in some low-income countries, they provide as much as 90% of formal employment and are responsible for more than a third of GDP. In Belize, more than 80% of businesses are MSMEs, and these provide roughly 70% of total private sector employment and income. Joining us on Zoom this evening is Beltrade's Executive Director, Dr. Leroy Almendarez, to have a discussion on the effects MSMEs are having on Belize's economy. So welcome, Dr. Almendarez, and thanks for joining us on the show, especially during your very busy schedule.
Good afternoon, and you're very welcome. Indeed, it is very busy, but it's an interesting topic and something that we continue to talk about, to advocate for greater not only understanding, but as you rightly mentioned, the role that it really plays not only in our economy but regionally and globally.
Yes, definitely. And I think we hear so much about the MSMEs and the effects on the economy. But according to the UNDP's Investment Opportunity Areas Report of 2021, it is suggesting that more than 80% of businesses are an MSME, and they provide a large percentage of the income in the country. But what is the rate of increase that Belize has seen when it comes to MSMEs? Is it rising? Is it declining? We would love to hear your expert opinion.
I think one of the perspectives you can take it from is entrepreneurship, as a matter of fact, because there has been, a lot more in terms of innovation and those who are engaging in entrepreneurial activities, some because situations cause it to happen, but in other situations, it's basically, I don't like the word boss, but really, I want to be my own boss. And of course, I see a market and my own creativity can be employed in such a way that I can get into that market because there's a target, a target audience that already exists. And if I can penetrate that, even if it means creating my own and be the only or the initial starter or the leader, I'm willing to do that. So then let's take the pandemic. The pandemic had a lot to do with, really fairs and things like that. But a quick response to your question is, yes, there has been an increase in terms of MSMEs in this country. And I must quickly state, because every opportunity I get now, that the definition of what is a micro, what is a small, and what is a medium enterprise in this country, that was changed. In fact, it was amended last year and included in the new Fiscal Incentive Act, which provides economic incentives for the sector, for MSMEs. But what for many, they still believe that the MSMEs, it means you're talking about a very, really a micro enterprise, for example, which might be a mom and pop, or a one-person owner or something like that. But that definition has changed. And if I may quickly say now that the definition now is what it was before. It was less than 5 employees, and then it was in terms of sales up to 100,000 or less than 100, really up to 100,000. The definition is now less than 200,000. This is the all-inclusive definition, less than 200,000 to as much as 30 million. So that would tell you, as you indicate, that MSMEs now will now account for even more in terms of employment and contribution to income in this country. Because what would have been considered maybe a large enterprise before with a sales turnover of 30 million, and they now fit within this definition. So you could see, the increasing number that would then now be included when we look at that definition.
Yeah, most definitely. You mentioned 2 very important words here. You mentioned entrepreneurship, one, and I do want to thank you for giving us the definition of the micro businesses now, because as an entrepreneur myself, $200,000 is a lot of money. So it's very insightful to see that that is still considered a micro business, and that is why it makes up for so much of our economy here in Belize. But in regards to entrepreneurship and COVID-19, there were some serious setbacks for businesses on a whole, but it also created opportunities for creatives and entrepreneurs to really deep dive into their minds and create new products and new services. I, for myself, created a card game during the pandemic. But in your position as the executive director, what was the major effect that COVID had on your role?
Well, let's take, because my role comes in, when it comes to not only intervention, but advocacy in terms of getting support further. In 2020, because it was a shock, even though we saw it coming, and it was not if, but when, it was still a shock because there was an immediate impact economically on the country. And so one of the first things that we did, and I'm talking now here as Beltrade, we did conduct a survey to see what were the impacts, what were some of the immediate challenges that they were facing. Because if you're talking about a micro, remember a micro at the time was less than 5 employees, and so financing, that was a big challenge for them. In fact, some of them would have closed their doors. But during that time, in order to shore up the sector, there was a stimulus program that was introduced. And that stimulus program really helped with several things. One, it helped with retention of employees, which is very important. So retention of employees was important. It helped with some working capital, which means you could still be able to get those materials that you needed to, really need to continue to operate. But the big thing that many of them faced was the lack of a digital footprint. And what do we mean by that? The fact that you had to now be 6 feet apart, the whole social distancing and everything else that existed. Those who are not able, of course, you see Facebook got a lot more busier, or it got busier than it really, in fact, it's busier now too. But a lot of them pivoted, and I think that's an important word. A number of these, some of them, because as though the pandemic was a threat, it was also an opportunity, and threat should always be thought of as something that potentially can be converted or changed to an opportunity. Some of them pivoted. I didn't think about this. How many entities, or how many of us would have thought that at one point for a period of time that a mask would become a part of our everyday wear, a part of our clothing? As a matter, you saw people got so creative that there was a mask for each, every time you left the home. And then others joined in that because, really the mask was something that we so much needed. You saw things like testing booths for COVID. Yeah. So entities actually pivoted, and you find out that a number of them were able to sustain that, because that's what's important. You can't let it be just for a period of time, because as more people enter a market, then it means now it becomes a competition, you see, and that allows for even greater creativity. So we saw pivoting. We saw that many of those who did that just continued to operate, continue to find new businesses, because the other thing that must be included in entrepreneurship is innovation. Once you can think about an idea and the creative mind, and that's why now we're focusing so much on the orange economy, which is now the full use of your intellectual creativity, intellectual capital. And so for those who continue to be creative, those who continue to be innovative, not afraid to take risk, because that's another thing as an entrepreneur. If you're afraid to take risk, then more than likely you will not survive for too long, because you're saying, I need a full-time job, but I also need to be an entrepreneur. And so you saw a lot more of that happening. The other thing I must tell you is that there were so many, this is where, really it showed you again, the intellectual creativity. A lot of apps were developed for different purposes. As a matter of fact, I was lucky to be invited as a judge in many of these situations. So that's another thing you saw, but you saw a full display of young people's creativity. And for those, for the purpose of survival, who found a way to survive, but additionally, the inclusion, or they included the use of technology in what they were doing, even if it was just social media.
Yeah, so speaking of pivoting, it's very important to recognize as well that a lot of the businesses have been virtual now. So because of COVID, many businesses shut down their offices to save money, and it was a lower overhead cost. Not to mention the apps that you mentioned. But in 2021, let us talk numbers now. 15 million people were operating to support sustainability of the micro, small, and medium enterprises, also known as MSMEs in Belize. And this project was to help protect employment and promote the economic recovery of MSMEs through hardships. But only 30% of the total IDB funding for this operation would finance climate change, which is a very important topic that we face every single day as Belizeans, considering that we have the Great Barrier Reef right there that ultimately protects us from erosions and natural disasters. But I do want to know, can you give us a synopsis of IDB support program, defining how businesses benefited or not from this project?
Well, the IDB has several projects when in terms of what they're doing to assist Belize with its economic recovery. I mean, you're talking about a study there, but that's a global study. That's not really just focusing on Belize. Belize has a population of about 450,000 right now. If you talk about CARICOM with the inclusion of Haiti, then it comes to about 18 million. So you're talking, about the whole region. But like I said, there, and as you have indicated, there has been, or too often, we believe, well, I won't say we believe because I'm advocate for the MSMEs, there is this misunderstanding that the greater contribution to the wealth of a nation are from the larger enterprises. But your statistics, when you mention your statistics in Belize now, like I said, with the redefinition, it's over 95% of businesses, it might even be close to 100% of businesses that now operate within that space. And they contribute globally, regionally, globally. The average is about 70% of employment, and I'm sure that will be increasing. And it's about 50% of the gross domestic product of a country, and we're talking about goods and services, because you tend to find out that a lot of these entrepreneurs engage in services. You asked the question about how much in terms of IDB's penetration. Like I said, that's some study that you read from. But let me tell you what's happening now with the IDB. As a matter of fact, Beltrade is engaged in about 4 different projects where the IDB is concerned. And one of them has to do with digitalization of MSMEs. The intention here is to digitalize 250 of them. and to ensure that there's greater efficiency, where they're concerned. You mentioned climate change. I just this week, in fact, it concluded today, where the government is working with the United Nations through the UNDP to establish an integrated network for a financing framework having to do with climate change. Because you can also have, let me also add this, that in the past, you wouldn't have the breakout, if you would, we'd say the segregation, but the breakout of where you could say, well, okay, you classify these MSMEs. There's an industrial policy that is being developed that will look at orange economy, blue economy, green economy. So now you have green entrepreneurs, blue entrepreneurs, and orange entrepreneurs, taking into consideration, of course, that the orange economy is not just, again, looking at that, for some, it's, really the musicians or maybe those who are involved in arts and craft or something like that. That's not the case. The definition is greater than, really. It encompasses more businesses than just those. And then, of course, we talk about the blue economy, what exists, below the water with, fishers, and then green economy, especially now with our focus on complying with those, to climate change, trying, meeting net zero by 2050 and all of that. So there's that digitalization project. I just put that in there. We also look at social protection, social inclusion in terms of agriculture. That's another project, that will assist farmers and things like that as well. In order to do trade with other countries, because we don't want our MSMEs to just focus or operate within the domestic space, within Belize, just Belize proper. We also want to see them export, especially with the trade imbalance that exists. And so there's a trade and investment single window, that is also being developed to help. When you talk about single window, I can press, go into on a laptop, on some software, and I can access all the forms that I need. I don't have to be running all over the place in order to do so. That's also support from the IDB. And I'm not referencing the IDB because you mentioned the IDB, but yes, that's some of the work that the IDB has been doing. It's always good as well to do pilot projects. So even if they extracted 30% or whatever percent you may have mentioned, pilot projects work. And if they succeed, then they become more attractive because you have success stories. And that's what you do where MSMEs are concerned. We at Beltrade, that's what we do. We have training and employment or small business development center. We help with those who are ready to export. And of course, if you want to invest. And so we also make sure that we have these success stories. It makes it easier for us because we do write proposal in order to access funding, not only from the IDB, but from CARICOM Development Fund, etc., to promote, to provide resources, training, and all of those, training and advice, business plan development, etc., for these enterprises that want to become a part of the market, want to engage in some relationship with commercial institutions. Those are some of the things that we do.
Well, thank you so much for providing us with more insight. I'm just really grateful for this conversation because as an entrepreneur myself, we get to see the bigger picture here and the effects that MSMEs have on our economy as well as our livelihoods. But Dr. Almendarez, unfortunately, our time has come to an end. But I do want to ask if you have any final words that you would like to leave the audience.
Well, really, I'd like to two things. One, if you can get access to it, it's there, or you can check with us. The Fiscal Incentive Act that was replaced the old one last year, in March of last year, it allows micro, small, and medium enterprises to really access benefits, meaning that there are benefits that you can access. If you have a business and you want to import, you can import up to $1 million over 4 years. Exemptions, get exemptions for those. We have an MSME enhancement program. If you really, when it comes to labeling and materials and things like that, if you're engaged in that, you can contact us and you can also benefit from that as well. And the other thing is, for those of you who may be operating out there and you're not registered, know that you can register And the tax, even if you weren't paying taxes before and you register now, you still will not be charged those taxes from the past. Don't be afraid to become a part of the formal system, because there are a lot of benefits that you can access for your business to continue to operate.
Thank you so much, and I hope your words resonate with our audience and our viewers. But unfortunately, our segment has come to an end, so I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll be right back.
Are you interested in diversifying your investment portfolio while maintaining a low-risk profile? Are you the smart, sophisticated investor that is seeking greater interest return on your investments while investing in your city? If you are, then you should invest in the Belize City Council's municipal securities. The Belize City Council offers both short and long-term securities that are attractive financial market options, which provides the investor with greater social added value satisfaction. You ask why? Because your investment in the securities are reinvested back into the growth and development of your city by way of infrastructural development, streets and drainage construction, parks, playgrounds, bridge rehabilitation, and much, much more. Let's look at the key features of municipal securities. First, they are tax-free. This means more of your money stays with you. You will enjoy greater interest yield without any tax deductions. Second, our interest rates of 4.5% on municipal papers and 8% on municipal bonds easily surpasses current financial institutions' interest rates on savings. Municipal securities are also a great investment in your retirement. The faster your money grows, the faster you reach your retirement fund goals. The municipal paper and the municipal bond are both tradable and transferable investments. This means that investors can get their money back before the maturity date by selling their securities to a third party. Lastly, investing in municipal papers offers investors a steady stream of income. You will receive your full interest earned on a quarterly basis until the maturity of the paper. To learn more about the Belize City Council's municipal securities and how you can invest in your city, call our financial advisor, Alpha Capital LLP, at 822-1794. Email at securitiestrade1@alphacapital.bz or give us a call at 227-3073. Your Belize City Council, always about the people.
Welcome back. This week, we will not have our usual Tech Bite segments, but Janine will be back next week with another exciting episode. The commemoration, formerly known as Baron Bliss Day, on March 9th, dedicated to honoring the country's foremost benefactor, the seafaring baron who advocated for annual boat races on that day, has evolved into National Heroes and Benefactors Day since 2008. The Baron Bliss Harbour Regatta, a long-standing tradition, features sailing boats from coastal communities and keys. The area from Memorial Park to the Animal Park, opposite the Baron Bliss Lighthouse, would be restricted for the event. Sailors of all ages, both young and old, would participate in various races. Due to various reasons, the regatta was relocated to the Buttonwood Bay area, in front of the seashore promenade, where mainly small boats and participants aged 8 to 17 would take part. Today, we are joined by Mr. Roberto Pott, committee member of the Baron Bliss Harbour Regatta. Welcome, Mr. Roberto Pott.
Thanks, Darfia.
So, Mr. Pott, tell us a little bit more about the Baron Bliss Regatta and your role as a committee member.
Well, it all started back in 1927. Baron Bliss is the single most largest benefactor to Belize ever, as far as I know. And he gave £1 million that helped to build the hospital, the library, that used to be the Bliss Library by foreshore. And then he also dedicated or put in his trust the conditions that they host regatta, which he had hosted several years out of his own pocket. And for us, sailing was a part of our industry. That's how we traveled along the coast. We didn't have many roads back in the early 1900s. And so sailing was how we transported, and that's how our economy moved. It didn't move on wheels, it moved with sail. And so sailing, we continue to celebrate, and this will be our 95th Baron Bliss Harbour Regatta.
Okay. And you are a committee member, so tell us why it's so unique and so special to you.
Right. I'm not only a committee member, it would be remiss of me if I didn't say that I'm also the skipper of the Belize Sea Scouts, which falls under the Scout Association of Belize. And what we were doing since our formation in 2003 is to provide a structured program for youths to get involved in sailing. I know growing up, I got in sailing through Sir George Brown, who was the first Chief Justice in Belize. And the training regimen included a paddle to knock you in the head if you stepped out of line. And so we know now that you don't use corporal punishment. You don't get the results you want out of youngsters. And so that's what the Scout Association does, and the Belize Sea Scout does that through sailing. It's not just about sailing, it's about providing a structured, safe environment where we culture strong leaders, because we eventually put a youth in a boat by himself, and he has to have the management skills, he has to have the communication skills, he also has to have the wherewithal to be able to lead his crew. If your crew is not working together, then, like they said, we either sink or we swim. And so that's what we do through the Belize Sea Scouts. Right. When we formed the Sailing Association in 2010, when we got a sizable donation through the chair, the Venerable Charles B. Hyde, and his secretary, the retired Brigadier General Alan Usher. They were the driving forces that brought in up to 50 boats for youths to help start up our youth sailing program. And that leveraged another 20 boats. So we had about 70 youth sailing boats. The class is called Optimist. There was a lot of debate. We didn't want to buy fiberglass because it went against everything that we believed in. But we realized that we had to do this in order to revitalize the sport. Okay. And so we've managed to do that.
Right. And so you talk about fostering this culture for the regatta, and we're relatively at the start of the new year. What is it that we have to look forward to for 2024 in terms of, this?
Right.
Yeah.
So, as you said, we've moved to the Buttonwood Bay area. Unfortunately, another shortfall in the development of, especially of our municipal areas, is that we don't leave seafront spaces for our communities. We are lucky to have BTL Park, and we see them gradually encroaching on on the seaside, that we call the Sandlighters Promenade. Mm-hmm. It hurts when you start to see them building structures where it should be open spaces for our people to go out and recreate. Because especially in Belize City, growing up in Buttonwood Bay, we enjoy going by the seaside and just hanging out. If you go to Quetzal on a Sunday, you will see the seaside packed with people just picnicking. And the city council should only have to provide that space, and a safe space again for families to go out and recreate. And that's what we're trying to do in Buttonwood Bay. There's the open space on Seaside, on Seashore Drive. We'll be operating out of Smokies, and the chair of the Harbour Regatta Committee, Colette Mejia, in his wisdom, designed the course so that anybody along the coast can get a good view of the race. What has happened, and what used to happen out by Fort Point, is that everybody is standing on the wall and the boats are hard to see. Like you'd need a binoculars to see the boats. And so it just wasn't spectator friendly. And so we've tried to create a spectator friendly event. We're trying to work with the Belize City Council to be sure that that space on Seashore Drive is open, clean, and people can come out and what the Americans call tailgate. You bring your ice box, you bring your picnic chair, your lounge chair, and you enjoy the race. You don't even have to understand the race, although we'll have a commentator explaining. It's what the nature experts refer to as enjoying that green and blue space. It's for, if you read Becca Lam, you look out over the sea and you have hope. It gives you hope when you look beyond the horizon.
Yeah, so this event in particular, we know that it takes place on the 9th of March weekend, similarly to La Ruta Maya. That's very near and dear to a lot of my friends and myself. So has it negatively impacted the regatta, itself?
No, I think we welcome the inland communities going, because we're all connected by water. We're all connected by water here in Belize. And what we needed is for the communities inland to take care of their water, because that Belize River is where I think maybe 60% of our population gets its water. And if we don't get the communities involved in the management, we will lose it. The Ruta Maya is complementary. There's no competition.
So
there could be no competition. We've been around for 95 years.
Okay.
When they reach half a century, then maybe they could start competing.
Okay. And how is it funded, the regatta? Is it privately subsidized by the government? Tell us a little bit more about that.
We get some seed funds from the Barbados Bliss Trust, not enough to go anywhere. And so we've had to reach out to the corporate sector, the business sectors to support us. BTB has come on board because we're looking at this as an opportunity to promote this as a cultural tourism experience.
Okay.
The sailing dories that come up from Gales Point are the last of its kind, and the good people down at Gales Point, they are proud of their culture, and they insist they want to sail sailing dories. And I say insist because if anybody ever tries sail a sailing dory, I call it high performance. But again, we want to do this in a sustainable manner. With sports in general, we've seen where people go cap in hand every year, and we want, that's not sustainable. There are times when you can do it and times when you should.
It sounds like to me that there are quite a lot of things to consider, especially in terms of regatta and the Sailing Association. But I believe we have run out of time for today. But Mr. Pott, thank you so much for your very insightful conversation. We really appreciate having you here today with us. So thank you.
And thanks for having me.
Okay. When we return, Destiny Wagner discusses innovation of young entrepreneurs in MSMEs.
Welcome to City Pulse by your Belize City Council. Join us on an exciting journey through the heart of Belize City, where we showcase the transformative initiatives shaping our resilient community. Our commitment to the people is unwavering, and our city's progress is built on solid foundations. At the beginning of this year, we pledged to rehabilitate 90 streets. Proudly, we've completed 71 streets, or 36,431 linear feet, which accounts for an impressive 78% of our commitment. The Council has made significant progress. Among these, 23 have been concreted, 26 have undergone rehabilitation using the chip and seal method, and an additional 22 streets have been further enhanced, being filled or topped up with materials such as hardcore or all-in, demonstrating our commitment to improving our city's infrastructure. But we're not stopping there. We've identified 41 more streets that need our attention. We are projected to meet 100% of our 90-street commitment 2 months ahead of schedule, accounting for an unprecedented 54,829 plus linear feet of road rehabilitation completed within the last 10 months. This transformation is fueled by a $6.9 million budget allocation, with 59% coming from municipal papers, 41% from the Council's operations, and support from our valued partners. Stay connected with City Pulse and witness the journey of a brighter, more connected Belize City. We're committed to your future. This People's United Party City Council is always about the people.
back, and thank you for tuning in to the Legacy Business Show. This segment will showcase a Belizean entrepreneur making significant waves in the Belizean economy each week. These are forward-thinking individuals who are pushing boundaries and breaking barriers. On tonight's show, we are doing things a little differently. We are having a conversation with one small business owner. As you've noticed, today's show has been centered on MSMEs and the effects it has on the economy. We are joined today by Lorcia Moore from Naturally Belize Cosmetics, and we want to have a small conversation on what it takes to be an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur, and owner of a small business in Belize in 2024. Welcome, Lorcia.
Hi.
How are
Thank you for having me on the Legacy Market Show.
You are very welcome, and I'm so happy we're having this conversation because as an owner of a product myself, I want to see if we have similar experiences. So first and foremost, can you tell us about your product and how you came about it and the foundation of your business?
Sure. So the name of my business is Naturally Belize Cosmetics, and we're located in Punta Gorda, and what we do is create all natural cosmetic products that consists of 3 lines. So I have a beauty bar line that's in supermarkets in 30 stores countrywide. I have a hair and skincare line that can be purchased through a website or at our Punta Gorda location. And I also have an eco-friendly hotel line that consists of hotel toiletries that are eco-friendly. They are made with natural ingredients and are also packaged in biodegradable and compostable packaging. And for me, I would say that my passion has always been creating a business that is zero waste. At the moment, I would say we're about 75% plastic free, using recycling bottles, biodegradable packaging, and compostable packaging. So that's a major accomplishment for me.
Okay.
Looking at where we got started, my grandmother used to make coconut oil for a living in Placencia, and when I started out, I used to make coconut oil. However, I kind of turned that into a value-added product, which is the cosmetic line, where we still incorporate using coconut oil in all of our products.
Thank you, Lorcia, for sharing your journey with us. So you mentioned that first your grandmother taught you how to make coconut oil, and that you started recently doing, I don't know if this is recently, can you just let us know if you recently started doing the eco-friendly hotel line, or was that something that has always been a part of Naturally Belize Cosmetics?
Yes, it's most recent. In last year, we launched the eco-friendly hotel line.
Okay, because I know that as an entrepreneur, we always have to be on top of things. And when we have a product or service that a lot of people like, they're constantly asking us, when is the next one? What are you going to do next? Can you tell us why you shifted into the eco-friendly hotel line? Was there a demand for it, or did you just envision it in your head one day and thought that this would be a good idea to bring to the market?
Yes, there was a demand for the hotel line. However, I always have to add the twist of it. It has to be eco-friendly. That's what I always kind of repeat to myself, and it makes it a bit more challenging when you're trying to get, a product to be eco-friendly, to be biodegradable, compostable, because the packaging are more expensive, I would say. But yes, there was a demand for it, not the eco-friendly part of it, I would say, but I had to add that into this new product.
Okay. Well, congratulations on your new line, first and foremost. I recently spoke before you. There was Dr. Almendarez from Beltrade, and he told us that 90% of our economy relies on MSMEs and that they generate almost 75% of national GDP and almost 50% of employment. I want to know if that information is shocking to you, and how has it been recruiting and retaining employees for Naturally Belize Cosmetics?
Okay. As an entrepreneur, I find that the statistic is fascinating and indicative of a robust entrepreneurial spirit within the community. I think the high percentage reflects a innovative culture. It also demonstrates the resilience and willingness of entrepreneurs in our economy. I would say exploring the factors contributing to this entrepreneurial landscape would be valuable for fostering further economic development and collaboration within the community. When it comes to employment, for me in Naturally Belize, we're a family-owned business, so we more tend to employ family member at the moment. We do take on part-time employees. We're more of a seasonal business as well because we work closely with the tourism industry. So we do tend to employ persons within high peak season.
That definitely makes sense. I want to talk about competition. Many people view competition as a negative thing, and many people view it as a positive thing, as when there's competition, that means the economy is flourishing and there's not a monopoly. So I wanted to hear your thoughts, because you are in the cosmetic industry and there are a lot of skincare and cosmetic lines out there in Belize and entrepreneurs are making organic soaps as well as body washes and skin creams. So what are your thoughts on competition within your field?
I think that competition is good in my field because when I first started, there were minimal small business or entrepreneurs that were making natural products. And so I had to be the one kind of advocating for that and marketing that to sell my product. And now because there's more people in the market, I find that there's more person that know about or are knowledgeable about natural products, the benefit of using natural product, a local product. So I feel that the competition have benefit us in a way that we can cut down costs on marketing. However, something that we have to safeguard ourselves against is that sometimes we have competitors that tend to imitate our brand and create the same exact product and would say, this is from Naturally Belize. So that's something that we're looking in close to this year with intellectual property, and also branding some of our product lines.
Thank you for sharing your opinion on competition with us. But now we want to talk about the fun part. Can you talk about the highlights or the benefits of owning your own business?
Okay, I think some of the benefits would be creative freedom. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you have a unlimited, I would say, creative space where you can feel free to create, to experiment, to trial and error with a product. While if you're in an institution, you only have a limit. There's also opportunity to learn and grow where you can select the trade, the skill that you want to improve on in your business. And lastly, I would say financial rewards, because for me and in our business, the more we sell, the more benefits, financially we would reap.
So if there is a struggling, let's say there's a struggling youth out there, or someone who has an idea about a product or service, but they're not quite sure where to start, what would be your advice to them?
My advice for them would be to start small. We usually have this dream that's so big, and we limit ourselves because we don't have the space. We don't have a laboratory. We don't have a workspace. We may not have a business vehicle that another entrepreneur have or something. Start small and go from there. I think sometimes these things limit us because we're looking at what other entrepreneurs are doing. So for me, I would say start small and go from there. Start with your family, your network, and then move from there.
Thank you, Lorcia. And our final question is, where do you see yourself as well as Naturally Belizean Cosmetics within the next 5 years?
For me, I would say I hope to have built or work towards building a green manufacturing plant where we can adapt green technology processes, favoring recycling material and limiting the impact of environmental hazards and yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck on your farm. I think that would be a huge accomplishment as well as benefit for your business. I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with us. I definitely enjoyed learning more about you as well as your business and what's to come within the next few years. So good luck with your business, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for today's show. Remember to join us weekly on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. for another episode of Legacy Markets. For now, we want to say good night, and remember, together, we create a legacy of a better world. Bye.